All the time, I hear people say things like Me Too went too far, or like the excesses of Me Too. Like there was some kind of authoritarian purge where there were a bunch of men arrested for things that they didn't do. And I don't remember it happening like that at all. And if you look at how things played out years later, you can see that many of the predators who were exposed during that are still in positions of power. And people haven't really taken any of the major lessons away from that situation. There's this kind of attitude like, yeah, Harvey Weinstein was bad, but, some of them other guys, they were just doing normal stuff. The two that come to mind are probably Louis C.K. and Aziz Ansari. And if you look into the situations and the things that they even admitted to, it's fucked up. It's not as bad as Weinstein, but it's still not cool. And the fact that they're still getting Netflix specials is crazy. They should have to work normal jobs at this point. We should not take power lightly. People in power should be heavily scrutinized at all times. And this means if you are in one of those jobs where you don't really have to work and you could do whatever you want and you could just have fun your whole life like these people do, that is a very privileged position to be in. And if you take advantage of that and take advantage of people in that position, you should just be disqualified from any kind of positions like that. This is obviously on the top of my mind right now because of the whole Graham Platner situation and, the way that people have rushed to his defense in the past 24 hours, people that I really respected in the media saying just wild shit. And it's not a matter of like parsing out the facts or whatever, like some of them are trying to claim that they're doing. It's like you're running along with these, like, what was she wearing type arguments, which, it's beyond this situation in particular. It is contributing to an environment of abuse that we definitely have in the United States and probably exists in most of the world as well. And I've always kind of had issues with Graham Platner, mostly over the military stuff and the Nazi tattoo and the things that he said about killing people. But I'm not one of these libs or right wingers that hate him because he is anti-Israel or whatever. I've been talking about Israel being an apartheid state since he was committing war crimes. And of course, it's very obvious that that's the reason why the media and the Democratic establishment, and probably the Republican establishment as well, was digging into his past as much as they possibly could. And everybody was kind of trying to argue with me about that, like saying, you don't understand. They're just trying to take him down. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but he had dirt on him. If he didn't have dirt on him, then there wouldn't have been nothing to find. Like with all these DSA people in New York recently, they dug up as much dirt as they possibly could find. Old tweets and accusations of Daria Lisa being against interracial relationships when she's in one, all sorts of wild shit. And they tried to dig up every little morsel that they could, but there were more than morsels with him. You know what I mean? And it's like some of the most serious things you could be accused of in very credible circumstances. And people want to pick it apart like, oh, did she invite it or whatever? And it's very, very disappointing to see some people go down that route. This kind of thing happens even in anarchist spaces and, activist spaces where there are men that are charismatic and they're in positions of authority and people don't want to speak up against them and they take advantage of that and they take advantage of people. Just having good politics or whatever doesn't absolve you from committing very serious crimes. This video is not really about Platner though. I really don't like the whole horse race politics thing, but this is kind of a lens into a very serious problem in our culture. And I think one of the things that causes people to kind of overlook a lot of the violence that happens against women and children is the fact that it is usually people who are in positions of power or people that they know personally. Or both, it's like a husband, a boyfriend, a father, a friend, a neighbor, a teacher, a politician, a boss. It's not the scary stranger in the dark alley 90% of the time. And I think a lot of people, and let's be real, mostly men, don't understand this. And, there is a tendency for people to take accusations against a boyfriend or a family member or somebody that was on a date less seriously. And that's definitely one of the things that are happening in this situation. And then there's this whole narrative about people need to be treated like they're innocent until they're proven guilty in court. And I think that that's total bullshit, especially in cases like this, because they rarely end in convictions. And there are a lot of different reasons for that. I mean, usually it's has a lot to do with the fact that there is usually some kind of relationship between the victim and the predator. And the defense often uses that to plant doubt in the jury, who often has at least one biased dude on there who's like, oh, well, I've been in a situation like that before. It doesn't seem that bad. And then it flies. And that's a lot of, I think, what happens when people are watching these things play out in the media. They're seeing themselves in these dudes a lot of times. But when it comes to putting somebody in a cage, it's perfectly understandable that you need enough evidence that it's beyond doubt that they're guilty. But you don't need that same level of evidence to blacklist somebody or to cut them out of your life. People call this cancel culture, but this is really just what comes when there is no accountability through the courts for powerful people. Like, look at all these Epstein people. None of them are being touched. And the only thing that we can do is to try to get them blacklisted from the banking industry or from the entertainment industry or whatever. That is like literally the only power that we have, is to shun these people from public life. And honestly, I don't have a problem with it in circumstances like this. I was in the music industry for a long time, as some of you know, and this is one of the main reasons why I left. There were countless women and girls who were abused by some of the biggest promoters and DJs in this region. And there was some reckoning about it a couple years ago, but those people still very much run shit both from behind the scenes, and some of them are still able to publicly show their faces. And one of the things that I thought was so crazy was how similar the text exchanges that were described in this story with Platner were to what happened with some of those DJs. And I remember that I knew a couple of the victims of some of these guys. And when all of the shit was going down, when people were finding out about what was happening, it was very upsetting for them to see a bunch of people rushing to these dudes' defenses and making a bunch of excuses for them just because they were in some kind of powerful position. And of course, I understand that there is a possibility that somebody can make a false accusation, although that is extremely rare. And on the other hand of things, like, you kind of know it went down. Like, nobody from the Platner side has said, I didn't go over there that night. You know what I mean? I was not drunk that night, and I did not go over there. And she did not tell me to stay home. Didn't deny any of that. He just said nothing non-consensual happened, which then results in this like nitpicking of every little action that the woman took in the situation to try to say, no, oh, this was actually her fault. And she actually gave him permission when nothing of the sort happened. And a lot of the excuses that people are throwing out there really shows that we have learned nothing from these past couple years of women coming out with their stories. There is like this expectation that they would go right to the cops afterwards, totally ignoring that, like I said, you know this person. It is super complicated. There is probably fear of retaliation. There are a lot of reasons why things don't play out exactly like you think they do. And that doesn't discredit somebody in the least. So yeah, when it comes to the political conversation, I am honestly less concerned with that. I know it is an important thing to get more people in there who at least claim to be anti-war, even though they're a war criminal. It's weird. It's weird that was the narrative. I understand that people can change, but I don't understand why everybody had to ride so hard. I've said this many times before. I mostly stayed out of the conversation because I like to talk about the specific issues, not the people in politics. I like to talk about the policies that I would like to see and the kind of cultural impacts that they have. And that's why I want to talk about this, not because, I'm super focused or invested in the race in Maine, but because I see people just running with narratives that contribute to that culture of abuse that feminists talk about. that I don't want to say the word of because YouTube will. Only 20 people will see this instead of 30. But yeah, I don't it's been a fucked up situation to watch, especially with people just jumping on the narratives that they did. I know this is one that people are probably going to disagree with me a ton on, even though ironically my Epstein content was very very popular on this channel. And if that is the case, I think that is something worth examining. Peace. Don't forget to check out my other videos. And if you have the ability and want to contribute, take a look at my Patreon, where you can get a subscription to my books and other cool stuff. I have some other videos to watch, so if you haven't seen them, go and binge on them. I'll see you next time.